Get off my land before I call the real police. That's what she screamed at me on property I legally owned a few hundred feet outside her HOA's jurisdiction. A week later, I watched that same woman, Karen Sutherland, get handcuffed right at my gate, arrested for impersonating law enforcement. And it all started because I dared to buy land she couldn't control. The morning it began, sunlight poured through the cabin windows, warm and clean, the kind of light that makes you believe maybe life's about to settle down. I was pouring my first coffee, breathing in pine air, when I heard an engine tearing up the dirt road. A white SUV moving way too fast for someone with a reason to be here. She stepped out before the dust even cleared black suit clipboard mirrored sunglasses. She didn't knock. She just walked right up to my porch like she owned the place. "I'm Karen Sutherland," she said, "chairwoman of Meadowbrook Estates, HOA." She flashed that clipboard like it was a badge. "I've received multiple reports of violations on this property. Unauthorized fencing, non-conforming shed, parking code infractions. You have 72 hours to comply." I leaned against the doorframe. "This land isn't part of your HOA." She laughed, sharp, humorless. "Everything in this area falls under our jurisdiction. That's how it works." I grabbed my folder from the kitchen table, deed title, certified survey map. I'd been a property attorney for 10 years. I knew how to read a boundary line. "This map," I said, pointing, "shows exactly where your HOA ends and my land begins. That's 217 feet of clearance." She barely glanced. "Old maps don't count. Boundaries expand." "Not without rezoning," I replied. "Do you have documentation?" Her jaw tightened. "I don't need to justify my authority to you. Consider this a courtesy warning." And then she smirked that cold, practiced HOA smile and said, "You might want to start packing." That's when I realized what kind of person I was dealing with. Not a neighbor, not even a bureaucrat, a dictator with a clipboard. I called an old friend Fletcher, a licensed surveyor who actually enjoys fights over property lines. "She said the boundaries expanded," I told him. He laughed. "That's not how anything works. I'll come by tomorrow." That night I installed cameras, one above the door, one on the shed, two covering the gates. Just in case. Fletcher confirmed everything the next morning. "You're clear," he said. 217 feet. Solid as it gets. I thought that'd be the end of it. It wasn't. The next morning, yellow papers were plastered across my property like graffiti. Notice of violation. On the gate, the mailbox, even the shed windows. Unauthorized livestock housing, aesthetic non-compliance, residential zoning breach. I didn't have livestock. I didn't have illegal structures. I took photos, cataloged every one. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "This is Karen Sutherland," the voice snapped. "You have 24 hours to vacate or we'll proceed with forced removal," I said calmly. "You don't have that authority. We've expanded our jurisdiction," she interrupted. I hit record. "You're aware this call is being recorded, right?" Click. Line dead. That's when I started to feel it, that tight, crawling sense that you're being watched. The kind that makes you check your windows twice. Fletcher came back later that day. "She's trying to bury you in fake paperwork," he said. "Seen this before. It's intimidation." I laughed, but it wasn't funny. That night I watched my cameras on my phone and froze. 3 figures moving across my field in the dark. Reflective vests that said HOA Inspection Team. Karen leading them, clipboard in hand. They cut my back gate lock with bolt cutters and spent 20 minutes measuring, photographing, acting like they owned it. I sent the footage straight to the sheriff's department. The next morning, Karen showed up again, this time with 2 people in suits. "We're here for a formal inspection," she said. I told her flatly, "You're trespassing." She held up a blurry photocopy. "This map confirms your land's within our expansion zone." I stared at it, no seal, no signature, just marker lines drawn by hand. "That's not a legal document," I said, "and there's no such thing as an expansion zone." Her cheeks flushed red. "We'll see what the courts say about that." I showed her the video on my phone, the footage of her sneaking across my land at 3 a.m. Her face went pale, then twisted with anger. "You're obstructing HOA business." "No," I said. "I'm protecting private property. Minutes later, a sheriff's cruiser pulled up. Karen immediately launched into her performance. "Officer, this man's being aggressive, refusing lawful inspection." I cut in calm as I could. "Deputy, this property's outside the HOA. They broke in last night. I've got video in my deed." He checked my documents, watched the footage, then looked at her. "Ma'am, do you have any legal proof your HOA covers this land?" she stammered. "We have internal records." "Internal records aren't law," he said flatly. "Leave or I cite you for trespassing." For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. She just turned and stormed off. That night, I almost let myself breathe, but deep down, I knew it wasn't over. 2 nights later, I woke to total darkness. No power, no hum from the fridge, no clock lights. I grabbed my phone flashlight and stepped outside. The breaker box lock was cut clean through, every switch flipped off. Fresh boot prints in the dirt. Then I saw the rest. My truck tires slashed. Fence posts sawed halfway through. Spray paint across my shed. Leave or else. Water gushing from a broken spigot. That wasn't harassment anymore. That was war. I documented everything, called the sheriff again. This time it wasn't Deputy Finch, it was Sheriff Blackwell himself. He looked over the damage, then at me. "This isn't vandalism, it's coordinated. And if that SUV in your footage belongs to who I think it does, we're looking at felonies." He told me to file for a restraining order. That night I sat alone in the dark cabin, lights flickering from the generator, wondering how it had come to this. I'd left the city to find peace and somehow ended up in a full-scale war over imaginary boundaries. For a second, I actually asked myself, what if I'm wrong? What if I missed something? Then I pulled out the deed, the survey, the footage, the recordings, hard proof, undeniable. No, I wasn't wrong. She was. And I wasn't running. The next morning, I wore a body camera. If she came back every second, would be recorded. She did. Her SUV came tearing up the drive again, 2 associates in tow. She didn't even pretend to be civil anymore. "What happened last night was unfortunate," she said, her tone dripping with contempt. "But you brought it on yourself." "Are you admitting you were involved?" I asked. She smiled. "When people refuse to follow the rules, consequences follow." I pointed to the body camera on my chest. "You just threatened me. On record." For a split second, her mask cracked. Then she snapped, "This property will be part of our community one way or another. You can leave voluntarily or we'll make it so uncomfortable you have no choice." I didn't say a word, just let the camera blink its little red light. 2 days later, I found out what uncomfortable meant. A white van rolled up my driveway. 4 people in a matching uniform stepped out, tactical vests, fake badges, HOA Enforcement Division. One of them shouted, "Mr. Graves, we're here to execute a mandatory eviction. Please vacate immediately." I walked out, slow, phone in hand. "You have no legal authority. You're impersonating law enforcement." The leader glared. "We're authorized by Chairwoman Sutherland." "Good," I said, dialing 911. "You can explain that to the sheriff." Before dispatch even finished taking my call, Karen's SUV came screeching up. "What are you doing?" she yelled. "These are official personnel conducting HOA business. You're interfering with a lawful process." I just pointed toward the horizon where red and blue lights were already cutting through the trees. Sheriff Blackwell stepped out of his cruiser, stone-faced. "Everyone, stay where you are." He took one look at the uniforms, the badges, the fake eviction notice, and shook his head. "This," he said, holding up the badge, "is a plastic toy printed at home. You're all under arrest. Impersonating law enforcement. Criminal trespass. Conspiracy." Karen started yelling. "I was protecting my community." Blackwell didn't even blink. "You hired people to commit crimes. Turn around and put your hands behind your back." And just like that, she was cuffed. Watching her sit in that cruiser, eyes wide, all that power gone, it didn't feel like victory. It just felt over. Later that week, the district attorney called me in. They'd built the full case: trespass, vandalism, impersonation, false reports. Every piece backed by my footage. The HOA board voted to remove Karen immediately, issuing a public apology and a written confirmation that my land was never under their control. 9 days. That's all it took for a woman who ruled her neighborhood for 15 years to destroy herself completely because she couldn't stand the idea of someone living free from her authority. She pled out probation fines banned from ever holding HOA office again. When I finally walked back to my porch, the air felt different. Still, no SUVs watching from the property line, no notices on the gate, no late-night footsteps in the dirt, just quiet. I didn't smile, didn't celebrate. I just stood there, coffee in hand, staring at the fence line 217 feet away, the line that started it all. Some people crave control so badly they forget where their boundaries end. But if there's one thing this taught me, it's that real freedom only exists when you're willing to defend it.